The sound of a heavy rain hitting the asphalt is the only thing louder than the distant hum of the city. On the corner of Mulberry and Canal, the steam rises from a silver cart smelling of onions, vinegar, and cheap charcoal. Behind it, Sal, a man whose face is a roadmap of 50 years of hard labor, wipes his brow. He's tired. His hands are cracked. He just wants to go home to a cold apartment and a quiet wife. Clink. The sound of a heavy ring hitting the metal edge of the cart. Sal looks up. Standing there is a man who looks like he owns the concept of the midnight hour. A custom-tailored Brioni suit, silver grey, reflecting the streetlights. Every hair in place despite the humidity. Beside him, two shadows in leather jackets, eyes scanning the dark like sharks. "Give me one. All the way. Mustard, onions, no sauerkraut," the man says. His voice is like gravel wrapped in silk. Sal works fast. He's served thousands. He hands over the hot dog, wrapped in a thin napkin. The man takes a bite, stands there in the rain, and for a second the world stops. He finishes it, nods, and reaches for his pocket. "Don't worry about it, pal," Sal says, waving a tired hand. "It's the end of the night, on the house. Go home safe." The two shadows freeze. Nobody tells this man, "Don't worry about it." The man in the suit pauses, his hand halfway to a roll of $100 bills. He looks Sal in the eye, a look that has ended lives, and sees nothing but genuine, exhausted kindness. "You don't know who I am, do you, Pop?" the man asks. Sal shrugs, cleaning the counter. "You're a hungry guy at midnight. That's all I need to know." The man smiles. It's not a warm smile. It's the smile of a predator who just found something he didn't expect. He turns and walks into the darkness of the Ravenite Social Club. Sal didn't know it, but he had just given a free meal to John Gotti, the Teflon Don. And in this neighborhood, nothing is ever truly free. As the Blacktown car pulls away, a local kid watching from the shadows whispers to Sal, "You realize you just signed your own death warrant or your own fortune, right?" To understand the weight of that hot dog, you have to understand the temperature of New York in '86. The feds were everywhere. Bugging the lamps, the trash cans, the very air Gotti breathed. Inside the club, the air was thick with espresso smoke and the tension of a billion-dollar empire under siege. Gotti was frustrated. The commission case was heating up. He needed loyalty, and he found only greed. When he stepped out for air that night, he wasn't looking for a snack. He was looking for a moment of reality. Back at the cart, Sal is packing up. He hears the heavy tread of polished shoes. It's not Gotti this time. It's one of the shadows, Frankie the Bone Cortese. He leans against the cart, the smell of expensive cologne clashing with the scent of hot dog water. "Mr. Gotti liked your attitude, Sal," Frankie says, tossing a coin up and catching it. "But Mr. Gotti doesn't like being in debt, not even for a $2 dog." Sal feels a chill that has nothing to do with the rain. "I told him it was fine. I don't want trouble." "Trouble?" Frankie laughs, but his eyes remain dead. "Sal, in this zip code, no trouble is a luxury you can't afford. Tomorrow you don't set up on the corner. You go to 4th and Lafayette. There's a spot there, high traffic, no competition." "That's a Gambino spot," Sal whispers. "The guys there, they'll kill me." "Not if you're the Don's personal chef," Frankie says, leaning in close. "But remember, loyalty is a two-way street, and the toll is high." Sal watches him walk away. He realizes he hasn't just moved his cart. He's moved his entire life into the middle of a war zone. The next morning, Sal arrives at the new spot. Sitting on his cart is a small gift-wrapped box. Inside is a single silver bullet and a note. "For the man who feeds the king." The Gotti effect was real. Within a week, Sal went from selling 50 dogs a day to 500. People didn't come for the food. They came to be near the aura of power. Wise guys in silk tracksuits stood in line behind Wall Street brokers. Everyone wanted to see the man who Gotti blessed. But fame in the underworld is a neon sign for the police. A man in a beige trench coat approaches. He doesn't look like a mobster. He looks like a bored accountant. He buys a dog, pays with a crisp 5, and stays to eat. "Business is booming, Sal," the man says. He flashes a badge inside his coat. FBI, Special Agent Miller. Word on the street is Gotti thinks you're a good luck charm. He comes by every Tuesday at 1 p.m., doesn't he? Sal's heart hammers against his ribs. I just sell meat, officer. I don't keep a calendar. Listen to me, Sal, Miller whispers, leaning over the mustard dispenser. Gotti is a monster. He's a murderer. You're a civilian caught in a spiderweb. We can help you. We just need to know what he whispers to you when he's leaning on this cart. Sal looks across the street. He sees a black SUV with tinted windows. He knows they are watching. If he talks to the feds, he's a rat. If he doesn't, the feds will crush his business with permits and harassment. I have nothing to say, Sal says, his voice trembling. Think about it, Miller says, leaving a card on the counter. The Teflon Don is starting to peel. You don't want to be the one stuck to him when he falls. That afternoon, Gotti arrives. He's laughing, surrounded by his entourage. He reaches out, puts a heavy arm around Sal's shoulders and whispers, I heard a dog was barking at my cart today, Sal. You didn't let the dog bite you, did you? The effect lender, the legend effect, was in full swing. Sal was no longer just a vendor. He was a landmark. But the king expects his subjects to pay tribute, and not just in hot dogs. Gotti leaned against the cart, his breath fogging in the winter air. Sal, I need a favor. Small thing. A friend of mine needs to drop off a package. He'll leave it under the cart in the storage bin. You don't look at it, you don't touch it. A different friend picks it up 2 hours later. Sal knew what this was. Drugs, money, a weapon used in a hit. Mr. Gotti, please, Sal pleaded. I'm an honest man. I have a family. Gotti's face turned into a mask of stone. The charisma vanished. Honest? You're standing on my street, protected by my name, making triple the money you ever made. Don't talk to me about honesty. Talk to me about gratitude. Sal looked at the people passing by. To them, he was part of the glamour of the New York Mafia. To him, he was a man standing on a landmine. The package arrived at noon. A heavy, taped-up shoebox. Sal placed it among the extra napkins. For 2 hours, every siren he heard felt like it was coming for him. Every customer felt like an undercover cop. When the pickup happened, the man didn't say thanks. He just took the box and disappeared into the subway. That night, Sal went home and threw up. He looked at his wife, Maria, and realized he hadn't told her a single word. The silence was the first wall of his prison. A week later, the FBI agent Miller returns. He doesn't buy a hot dog this time. He shows Sal a photo. It's Sal, looking terrified, handing the shoebox to a known Gambino hitman. That's 20 years for conspiracy, Sal, unless you start talking. The pressure was a vice. On one side, the FBI was threatening to take Sal's life away. On the other, the Gambinos were treating him like a mascot, which meant he was property. Sal was invited to the Ravenite for the first time, not as a guest, but to serve food for a private celebration. The celebration was for an acquittal. Gotti had beaten another case. The streets were screaming his name. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of expensive cigars and victory. Gotti beckoned Sal to a back table. You look thin, Sal. You worrying? Gotti asked, sipping a scotch. It's the feds, John, Sal said, the name feeling like fire in his mouth. They have photos. They want me to talk. The room went silent. You don't say the word feds in the Ravenite unless you're prepared for the consequences. Gotti leaned back, his eyes boring into Sal's soul. And? What did you tell them? Nothing. I told them I sell hot dogs. Gotti stared at him for what felt like an hour. Then he burst out laughing. He slapped the table, and the whole room relaxed. See? This is why I like this guy. He's got more balls than half the capos in this city. Gotti pulled out a thick envelope. Take this. Go on a vacation. Take the wife to Italy. When you get back, we'll fix the dog problem. Sal took the money. He felt the weight of it. It wasn't a gift, it was a leash. He was no longer a witness. He was an accomplice. As Sal exited the club, he saw Agent Miller parked across the street. Miller didn't move. He just pointed a finger at Sal and made a bang gesture with his thumb. The legend of the hot dog seller reached the tabloids. The New York Post ran a small piece, "The Don's Favorite Deli on Wheels." Sal was a local celebrity, but he felt like a ghost. Gotti's fix for the FBI problem was simple and brutal. He wanted Sal to wear a wire, but for him. Gotti knew the feds were trying to flip Sal. He wanted Sal to go to the FBI, pretend to cooperate, and feed them false information about a non-existent drug shipment in Queens. If they buy it, they look like fools. If they don't, we know you're a rat, Frankie Cortese explained to Sal in a dark alley behind the cart. Sal was trapped in a game of 4D chess, played by grandmasters of violence. If he lied to the feds, they'd send him to prison for life. If he refused Gotti, he'd end up in a barrel in the East River. He went to the meeting with Miller at a diner in Brooklyn. "I'm ready to talk," Sal said, his hands shaking so hard he had to sit on them. "Good," Miller said, leaning in. "Tell us about the hit on Paul Castellano. Tell us Gotti admitted to it." Sal looked at the grease on the diner windows. He saw the reflection of a man he didn't recognize. He realized that in the world of Gotti, the truth was a luxury Sal could no longer afford. Sal gave them the fake tip Gotti provided. But Miller smiled a dark, knowing smile. "Funny, Sal. We already knew about that shipment, and we know it's a decoy. You're playing us, and that's the biggest mistake of your life." The relationship between the Don and the vendor had changed. The kindness was gone, replaced by utility. Gotti was becoming more paranoid. The feds were closing in, and everyone was a suspect. Sal's cart was no longer a gold mine. The feds had parked a construction van nearby with cameras. Customers stayed away. The wise guys stopped coming by because the heat was too intense. One afternoon, Gotti walked up alone. No entourage. He looked tired. The Brioni suit was slightly wrinkled. "You ever wish you just stayed on that corner and charged me for that dog, Sal?" Gotti asked, looking at the grey sky. "Every day, John," Sal said honestly. "Me too," Gotti whispered. "In this life, once you take something for free, you never stop paying for it. Everyone wants a piece of the king, but the king is just a man with a target on his back." It was the most human moment they had ever shared. For a second, the legend vanished, and they were just two men in a dying city. Then, Gotti's eyes snapped back to steel. "The feds are coming for me, Sal. When they do, they'll come for you too. Remember what we talked about. Silence is the only thing that keeps you breathing." That night, Sal's cart was firebombed. No warning. Just a Molotov cocktail that turned his livelihood into a charred skeleton of twisted metal. The feds finally did it. They picked up Gotti. The Teflon was gone. And as the empire crumbled, the shockwaves hit every corner of Little Italy. Sal was picked up at 5 a.m. They didn't even let him put on shoes. They threw him into a room with Agent Miller, who looked like he hadn't slept in 4 years. "Gotti is gone, Sal. Sammy the Bull is talking." "Everyone is talking," Miller shouted, slamming a file on the table. "We have the shoebox, we have the wiretaps. We have your fingerprints on a dozen favors for the Gambino family." Sal sat there, a broken old man. "I was just a hot dog seller." "No," Miller hissed. "You were his mascot. You were the symbol of his benevolence while he was killing people. You helped him paint a picture of a man of the people while he ran a criminal enterprise. That makes you just as dirty as the rest." They offered him a deal: witness protection, a new name, a new city, and a life of looking over his shoulder, or 15 years in a federal penitentiary. Sal thought about the rain on Mulberry Street. He thought about the man in the silver suit who just wanted a hot dog with mustard and onions. He realized that Gotti hadn't saved his business, he had destroyed his soul. Sal leaned toward the microphone. "I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me one thing. You tell the world that the Teflon Don never paid for a single thing in his life, not even a hot dog." The courtroom was packed. John Gotti sat at the defense table, still wearing the suits, still smirking, until Sal took the stand. When the old vendor walked in, Gotti's smirk vanished. He looked at Sal with a mixture of betrayal and pity. Sal spent 6 hours on the stand. He detailed the packages, the messages, the threats, and the gifts. He dismantled the image of the generous mobster. He showed the jury the reality, that the mob doesn't care about the little guy. They only use the little guy as a shield. During a break, as Sal passed the defense table, Gotti leaned in. The guards moved to stop him, but Gotti just whispered loud enough for Sal to hear, "I should have paid the $2, Sal." It wasn't an apology. It was an admission of a strategic error. In Gotti's world, a mistake in business was the only sin. Sal walked out of that courtroom and into a waiting black car. He was no longer Sal from Mulberry Street. He was a number in a government database. As the car drove away, Sal saw a hot dog cart on a street corner. He looked at the vendor, a young immigrant with hopeful eyes, and he started to cry. He knew exactly what was coming for that man, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. In a small town in the Midwest, an old man named Joe works in a hardware store. He doesn't talk much. He eats lunch alone. He never buys hot dogs. John Gotti died in a prison hospital in 2002. The empire he built is a shadow of its former self. The Ravenite is now a boutique clothing store. The streets of Little Italy are filled with tourists who don't know the names of the men who once bled on those sidewalks. The legend of the hot dog seller still lingers in the old neighborhood, though. The old-timers tell the story of a man who was too kind for his own good. They say the mistake wasn't giving the dog for free. The mistake was thinking that someone like John Gotti could ever be a regular customer. In this world, power is a flame. If you're too far away, you freeze. If you get too close, you burn to ash. Sal got just close enough to feel the warmth, and it cost him his name, his home, and his life. Was it worth it? The fame, the money, the protection? Or would he give it all back just to be that tired man on the corner, charging $2 for a dog and going home to a quiet life? The truth is, once the Don steps up to your cart, the choice is already gone. History remembers the kings. It remembers the Dons and the killers, but it forgets the people who served them. Sal is a ghost now, living in the silence he bought with his testimony. The story of Sal and Gotti is a reminder that in the world of crime there is no such thing as a free favor. Everything has a price, and usually it's more than you can afford to pay.